Hey fam, this is your communications and life coach, Coach Tomina Ward, on all things health, wealth, and relationships. So today we have a great show. I am super excited to have my guest on the show with me. I have known her for many, many years, and her story is one that needs to be heard. So, fam, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's only fitting that we have a discussion to highlight some of the illnesses that we deal with on a regular basis. Every year, so many of Americans face the reality of living with a mental illness. Every year, we fight stigma to know that it's okay to not be okay, to let the community and those around us know that they're not alone as we try and provide support, educating the public, and advocating for policies that support people with mental health and their families. So I just love open discussions that are being had surrounding mental health. I'm a huge mental health advocate. So today, it seems as though we're trying to make it sexy and acceptable to have these discussions surrounding mental health. One thing that we often forget is how much diseases have an effect on our mental health. Diseases like cancer, like diabetes, as well as chronic diseases such as endometriosis. And that is why I needed to bring my guest on the show today. We are talking about the effects of this chronic disease, her journey, and how she's pushed through to see things through a different lens after the struggle and the diagnosis. So without further ado, I'll give you a hand clap of welcome. Allow me to introduce my guest, Miss Tyreasa Nelson. Welcome, 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 Ty. How are
Thank
you?
you. Thank you. Thank you. I am fabulous. Thank you, Miss Coach Ward.
Look, I'm so excited that you're here today with me. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know your struggle and your story personally. I have seen you fight, and I have stood by on the sidelines and admired how you've made it through. So, it was definitely one reason why I wanted other women and other people to hear your story because it's inspiring. So many people need to know that things can get better when you have a diagnosis as endometriosis.
Absolutely. And what better way to highlight it than May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, where
Yes.
so many people deal with chronic illnesses like migraines or lupus or endometriosis. And no better way to highlight it than just talking about some of the things we all deal with every day. And 1 in 10 women have endometriosis. 1 in 10.
Mm.
So that means that there is somebody you know personally out there that is fighting for dealing with this disease and they may not even know it.
Wow. 1 in 10. That's crazy. So, endometriosis. What is endometriosis?
So, yes, I have had a 6 year. I could probably have a degree with everything I've learned over the last 6 years into my journey. Endometriosis is when the lining, which is called the endometrium of the uterus, detaches from the uterus and lands on other body parts. Now, most of the time, these are your reproductive organs. So, yes, endometriosis is something only women can have. So it may land on your ovaries or land on your fallopian tubes. But there is a lot of studies where it can land on your bowel or your bladder and it starts to impact how have periods. It impacts how you have painful periods. You can have painful cramps, painful sex. You can have nausea, vomiting, pelvic pain. All these chronic fatigue. All these signs and symptoms are a sign that you may potentially have endometriosis.
That's good. So, ladies, we didn't say this up front, but this show is for you, but it's also for, any men that are out there and listening. You may be supporting your wife or your girlfriend that may be going through endometriosis. So, it's always a good time and always a good opportunity to learn how we can support people going through these chronic illnesses. So, one thing that you
Absolutely.
mentioned, Ty, is that there's a piece of tissue that lands on other body parts. So when you talk about it landing on other body parts, and you mentioned, it could be the bowel or another internal part. Um, what's one of the negative effects of that happening?
So um with some of the negative effects, like I said, there is can be painful sex, painful periods, cramps, nausea, vomiting, and a lot of women have bowel and urinary disorders. So a ton of women get misdiagnosed as having IBS, and they actually have endometriosis. A lot of women have pelvic pain or heavy bleeding during their menstrual cycle, and it's misdiagnosed, and it's actually endometriosis. So a lot of people don't like to refer to it in this way, but I do. I refer to it as like a cancer. And the reason that I do that is because cancer kind of goes around the body and lands on different body parts, and it kind of takes over. Well, endometriosis does the same thing. When it lands on the body parts, the endometriosal cells are designed to contain a baby, right? So they grow every single month,
Mm-hmm.
just like when you like a woman having her period, and then when you have your period, it releases. Well, if it lands on your bladder or lands on another organ, what happens during that time of the month is that you have internal bleeding. That's why it's so much pain. That's why it's so much cramping. That's why people have pelvic pain in other times of the month, because that blood really has nowhere to release to, because that endometriosis cells are no longer in the uterus to release out like a normal period. So I have even heard of women having endometriosis cells on their lungs, and every time they were having a period, they literally lungs would collapse. So that's why sometimes I refer to endometriosis cells very similar to cancer cells, to help people kind of understand what it is, the symptoms behind it, and why you're having the symptoms behind when you have endometriosis.
Wow, that's tough. And I don't think that many people understand some of the excessive symptoms that goes along with it. Having endometriosis that attaches to the lungs, right? I don't think that anyone can even put that together unless they were actually going through it. And you're right, cancer does pick different parts of the body that it affects. One thing that I think is so interesting is when I hear people talk about they have lung cancer and they've never smoked a day in their lives. And that when you
Exactly.
when you
Exactly.
mentioned that, that's what that reminded me of, is that how it can attach to and
Yep.
pretty much almost kill those cells that it has attached to. Wow. So
Exactly.
you happen to mention a lot of women are misdiagnosed. Um,
Yes.
and unfortunately, that happens so much in today's society with medicine. Of course, the doctors are not perfect. However, being misdiagnosed can be such a detriment to the body with any disease, and I'm sure especially with
Absolutely.
endometriosis. So with
Absolutely.
with you and with your diagnosis, how long did it take you for you to officially be diagnosed with endometriosis?
So there's information out on the endometriosis site, which I'll give some resources later, that says it can take some women 5 to 10 years
Wow.
delay in diagnosis. There are stories about so many women that are in my support group who the doctors didn't listen to them when they were younger, and they struggle with painful periods or painful cramps, or pain with sex, and nobody listened to them, and they just dealt with it. They were literally they couldn't move during their period. They couldn't have any activity during their period. Like all these things, and they just say the women are crazy. They tell women, oh, sometimes they've told some of the women you need to go see a psychiatrist or a
Wow.
counselor for some of these issues. The misdiagnosis is because sometimes doctors don't listen to women. And that is very, very unfortunate. We know that it happens though. And especially with minority women,
Mm.
doctors, we know that there are issues in the medical community, but what is so important is that you have to listen to your body. You have to listen to your body. If you are having painful periods, bleeding outside of your normal period, if you are having pelvic pain that is abnormal, bowel and urinary issues, you need to listen to your body and you need to go to another doctor. Get a second opinion. Do some research. Like, keep going. My story was I was having pelvic pain, I believe in the summer of 2015, and I had recently gone through a divorce. And so when I went to my doctor asking, hey, I'm having this pain. It's not normal. It's weird. It's happening when I have periods and when I don't have periods. And she told me it was stress.
Mm.
She said it was stress from my divorce. So I said, okay. And so then I continued to have this pain. I noticed I was having painful sex. I was having chronic fatigue, and still nobody would really listen to me. They were just like, nothing can be wrong with you. I think it's just that divorce. I think you just are going through a lot right now. And so finally, when it came time for my annual exam at that year in 2015, I'm sorry, it was not 2015. It was 2014. When it became time for my annual exam, I literally jumped off the table in pain. Like,
Wow.
that's how bad the annual exam hurted. I jumped off the table in pain and I was like, oh my gosh, what is that?
Wow.
So the doctor didn't immediately know. She just like, oh, and then I said, I've been having this pelvic pain, I've been having this chronic fatigue, and she said, oh, maybe you have some cysts. Because I had previously been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome,
Which a
which
lot
is
of
something
women
a lot of
have.
women deal with.
Yes.
Yep,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
something a lot of women deal with. And so she thought I had cysts. We scheduled a surgery, a laparoscopy, and so she thought she was going to be in there removing cysts. That is the most vital thing to understand about endometriosis. It does not come up on any medical exam. It doesn't come up. She thought I had cysts because it doesn't show up on CT scans. It doesn't show up on MRIs. It doesn't show up on um, X-rays, and it doesn't show up on. I can't remember that thing when you have a baby. What is a sonogram?
Oh yeah, like an
It
ultrasound.
doesn't.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Ultrasound. Yep. It
Uh
doesn't
huh.
show up on any of those things. As a matter of fact, I remember asking my doctor for an X-ray. I was in so much pain. I was like, please, please, just give me an X-ray or something. I know something's wrong. And she was
Yeah.
like, nope. And so because it doesn't show up on any of these medical pictures,
Yeah.
you have to have it laparoscopically seen through the camera lens to diagnose properly endometriosis. So when I came out of surgery thinking she's going to tell me, oh, I got rid of these cysts, she actually said to me, oh, you have endometriosis. And I said,
Hmm.
endo what?
Right.
And I was like, endo what? I had no idea what it was. It took me probably 6 months to even start saying the name right, endometriosis. And so she said, it's one of these diseases that comes back. So I'll probably see you in about 2 years. I said, okay.
Hmm.
I went on with my life. I continued to work and do everything properly. And about 5 months later, all the pain started to come back. The pelvic pain came back. The chronic fatigue came back. The bowel and urinary issues came back. And I was like, something is just not right.
Right.
Then I started to have bleeding between periods again. And I said, I think that endo thing she told me I had was back. So I went to the doctor and I said, something is not right. I know you told me it would be 2 years, but it has been 6 months. So now it's June 2015. It's been 6 months. Something's wrong with me. So she says, okay, I don't think it's that, but I'll go ahead and I'll look laparoscopically to see why you have so much pain and so much bleeding.
Right.
We went into surgery, and when I came out, her face was stone faced. And she looked at me and said, Tyreasa, I'm so, so sorry. I'm so, so sorry because you went from stage one to stage three in 6 months of endometriosis. She said, you have aggressive endometriosis and we have to fight it aggressively. And I had no idea what that meant. All I know is that I had to learn real quick what this disease was,
Yeah.
what it was doing to my body. I had to learn, what is these stages. I had to figure out, okay, what is happening here? And my life has never been the same
Wow. So
since.
you mentioned so many good things. For one, I caught listen to your body, and that's something that we talk about, but
Yeah,
at the end of the day, and in each community, we just ignore certain signs, and we think it's going to go away, and we don't want to go to the doctor and investigate, and especially in the Black community, we're the
yes,
quickest
yes.
ones to either not have the proper insurance to take care of ourselves, or we're real quick to ignore it and think that it's not gonna be a big deal. So listening to your body is key, and that's for men and women out there with anything that you are dealing with. You know
Absolutely,
how
absolutely.
things function in your. No one knows you like you.
Oh,
So one
nobody.
day I'm good, I'm walking, there's no pain, and then the next day there's excruciating pain. I need to pay attention to those signs and those symptoms. So that was one thing
It's
that
so
I
interesting that you say that, Tamina, because I went through a lot, obviously, after that. I have now had seven laparoscopies, nine procedures to deal with endometriosis, and I am now in medical menopause to
wow.
deal with this horrific disease. But in that process, I found when I went to get a second opinion, I found this really great doctor in the Chicagoland area. And he said that to me. He said, when your body is in pain, man, woman, child, it is trying to tell you something and you have to listen.
Yes. Mm.
Anywhere your body is displaying pain, you have to listen.
You know, I also think that we've been programmed. I use that a lot, is our
Yep.
programming from when we were raised back in the day. You
Yep.
know, what Chris Rock say? Put some tussin on it, right?
Yes.
You in pain, you broke your leg, put some tussin on it. But
Exactly.
we've been programmed to think that taking that medicine is going to solve the problem, but I'm still dealing with the pain and I'm just going to ignore it. And I think that that's very important advice that doctor mentioned, is that, yeah, when you are going through pain in your body is trying to tell you something. Listen to that communication that's happening and pay attention.
Pay
That's
attention.
good.
My
So,
goodness.
it's you also talked about how the reason that it gets misdiagnosed for so many years, and for why so many women go in and struggle with finding the right diagnosis, is because it's only done laparoscopically.
Yep.
And unfortunately, if a woman isn't advocating for herself to get
Yeah.
that done, then I don't think a lot of the doctors are willingly to, just go directly to that step or that
Uh,
procedure, if it's not evident to them that they need to go there right up front.
oh my gosh, I can think of a myriad of issues from. You're right, Tamina. Like if the doctor doesn't want to go in laparoscopically, it could be an insurance issue. We
Yes.
know that health insurance has been a major issue in this country for way too
Yes.
long, especially for minorities. It could be an issue with not having access. Every hospital doesn't have the robotics designed for you to have a laparoscopy. Women's health. We know that that is sometimes seen as secondary to men's health. And
Yes.
so sometimes you don't
Ooh.
have the doctors in your area that even know. And one of the biggest things that I learned going through this process is that OBGYNs, as great as they can be, they deliver babies.
Right.
I remember I remember after the June 2015 surgery, I probably had to have surgery every 3 to 6 months after that. And every time I would go in my OBGYN's office, I would be crying. Every single time I would go in there, I would be crying because of what this chronic illness, endometriosis, was doing to my body. And I remember a lot of the nursing staff, and they would see me and they would hug me, but they didn't even know what it meant. These
Right.
are women that work in an OBGYN office who were like, you have endo what? Endometriosis. And that's how I had to really learn that you do have to advocate for yourself. You do have to look up things for yourself. You have to research. When your body's in pain and they keep telling you that it's nothing, it's just stress from your job or a divorce or whatever, your kids, you have to begin to research. It is free to use your Google search.
Yeah.
You have to seek out the information for yourself. But I remember I had to really learn that this office delivers babies. This
Yes.
office doesn't deal with chronic illness. This office isn't here to deal with people like me. And so that's another thing for women. When you are having issues, just remember that sometimes some of these OBGYNs are the reason people are misdiagnosed is because they're just not used to dealing with that. They're just used to delivering babies.
Right. And don't specialize specifically in that area of that chronic illness.
Exactly,
You
exactly.
know? Yeah. And, that's that, it makes total sense. That's why that we have doctors that specialize in certain areas because those are the ones that can really drill down into what's happening with that person with that specific illness. And that's such a great point is advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
You happen to mention that you went from stage 1 to stage 3 in a matter of months. When you said those stages, I think by you comparing it to cancer, that really rung true, when you mentioned that. And I was like, okay, wow, from stage 1 to stage 3, can you talk a little bit about what that means with endometriosis?
So with endometriosis, as I was explaining earlier, it is when the endometriosal lining in the uterus, when those cells come out and they land on other body parts, primarily the reproductive organs, but they also land on other organs like your bladder, your bowel, other organs up into, it can be your lung even. So when that happens, the number of endometriosal cysts and lesions they find in the body dictate the stage.
Okay.
So, for example, if you have stage 1 endometriosis, maybe you just have a couple clusters of endometriosal cells, on your ovary or on your fallopian tube. Stage 2, maybe it's underneath on the backside of your uterus and on your ovaries, fallopian tube, but now it's on your bladder. Now it's on your bowel. Stage 4 means it's kind of all over your pelvic cavity. So, really, it's about, again, comparing it to cancer, it's about how much it has spread in the body
Okay.
and how many organs it's impacting. And I remember having IBS issues. I remember having a hard time swallowing and eating sometimes, going to the restroom. I remember having urinary issues. Like it was causing all this havoc in my entire pelvic cavity. So, yes, the stages, your pain that you're experiencing, and the stages. Now, this is the thing though. This is so, so, so important, women.
Okay.
It does not matter what stage you are, the pain can be the same or none. You can be stage 4 with no pain, and you can be stage 1 with excruciating pain. Let me say that again. You can be stage 1 with excruciating pain because that endometriosal cells has landed near a nerve or something within your body, and you can be stage 4 and have no symptoms whatsoever. So the pain or the level of discomfort doesn't necessarily diagnose the stage. That is what the laparoscopy is for. And that's why the laparoscopy is so important, for the doctor to go in and look and see where is that endometriosis landing. And I want to also let people know there is a cousin to endometriosis named angiomyosis. And what it is it's endometriosis of the muscle. And so that's another little thing, right? So that's another little level. A lot of people have endometriosis and angiomyosis, but some don't. And I want to just real quick talk about angiomyosis because there's a really great YouTube video of singer of actress Gabrielle Union talking about she has endomyosis, and talking about that's why her and Dwayne Wade, her husband, had to go through surrogacy to have their baby,
Right.
because what was happening is every time she would get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
the endometriosis would come out of the muscle, form around the baby, and then she would have a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So that's so important. Endometriosis is the number one leading cause of infertility in the country. Let me say that again. Endometriosis and angiomyosis is the leading cause of infertility in this country.
Wow. Ladies, that is so important to take heed to listen to, listening to your body, fighting for yourself. When you're experiencing that, fighting for the diagnosis, the right diagnosis, asking for that laparoscopy. That's some tough stuff that so many women experience and that they go through. And we're walking through daily activities and daily lives, and we're smiling at some of these women, and on the inside they're dying. On the inside they're in pain. You mentioned going to the doctor, and when you went to the doctor you just be crying. That right there sounds like endometriosis had an effect on your mental health. Can you kind of give us a rundown of what else happened as a result with your mental health after this diagnosis?
My goodness. If I knew then what I know now, how many things I would have done differently. I was crying every single time I went to the doctor, because remember, guys, when I first had the first surgery, she said, "You'll be fine for 2 years and you might have to come back and have another surgery." I wasn't fine for 2 years. I was only fine for 5 months. By month 6, I was back in pelvic pain, back having bowel and urinary issues, back having chronic fatigue, back having bleeding between periods. So when she said to me, "You are going to you have aggressive endometriosis and you have to fight it aggressively," I didn't know what that meant. There is a lot to be said about hormonal therapy and therapies related to endometriosis. There's a lot of things that they do, but there is no cure. So when you talk about mental health, there are people trying to get pregnant and can't. There are hormones that are putting us in menopause for endometriosis, like Lupron. There is hysterectomies happening from women as young as 15 years old because of endometriosis.
Wow.
You have got to know what you want to do, because if you leave it up to some of these doctors, you will just have things happen to you or done to you that you were not prepared for. And that's why I had to go get a second opinion, because after the third laparoscopy I'm like, "Look, you told me I will be fine for 2 years. I'm not fine in 6 months. I'm losing my ability to walk. I'm having pelvic pain." Do you know what that my mental health was? I had to go from going into the office to working from home. I did not even get diagnosed with depression and anxiety until endometriosis came into my life. I didn't even know what those two things were. Chronic illness no matter from migraines, lupus, cancer, endometriosis, adenomyosis, it takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your mind, emotionally, mentally. It takes a toll on your finances. You think all these surgeries were cheap? Oh no.
Right. Oh
I had
yeah.
insurance and it still wasn't cheap.
You're right.
It takes a toll on you spiritually. I remember, as a self-described Christian, non-denominational, I just remember going to God constantly, like, God, what is this disease and why is it taking hold of my body? I felt like I had no control. And when you feel like your body is taking over like that, the mental health consequences are just unheard of. I had to go into counseling to deal with the endometriosis. Like you, I had to get. It's so important to get connected to support groups on Facebook. One of the best support groups that I know for chronic illness is a website called The Mighty, and it's like the mighty people with chronic illnesses, and it's different pages on there for the different illnesses, and they basically tell you, and you hear from other women going through it, and finally you feel, oh my gosh, it's not just me, somebody
Right.
else out there is going through what I'm going through. You have got to protect your body and protect your mental health anytime you have a chronic illness, and endometriosis took its toll. I started to have issues at work. I started to have issues with my manager. I was becoming a different person because my body was changing in ways I didn't understand. And I was on hormonal therapy that I didn't understand. I was being put in medical menopause. That was giving me issues I didn't understand. So, you want to talk about a toll on somebody's mental health? Endometriosis brought all that with it.
Yeah. And I can absolutely see and understand, how it would take you down that path and down that road after the change in your life with this chronic disease. You mentioned depression. You mentioned anxiety. Um, can you tell us a little bit about anything specific that you noticed when it came to, depression that you didn't deal with before the diagnosis?
Absolutely. Besides crying in my doctor's office every time I went, of course. Yeah, that was interesting development in my life. Um so something that's really really important for people to know is that endometriosis is a chronic illness, and chronic illnesses are covered under the Family Medical Leave Act, which secures your job for 12 weeks. That's so important to know because a lot of times with these surgeries, they kind of give you a laparoscopy, but sometimes they send you right back to work. Take some time to let the body heal.
Nice.
One of the biggest things that happens when you are having a laparoscopy is they are either cutting out the endometriosis or they are burning it off. And this is what I explain to people. If I take your finger and I put fire to it, and then I tell you to go back to work in 3 days and use your finger, you probably aren't going to be able to.
Right.
So think about that when it comes to your body, when they're trying to hurry up and send you back to work. So you guys have to know that it's covered under FMLA, it's protected under even ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so I did have to look into all these FMLA laws and ADA laws, and because I couldn't go to work. I couldn't even walk half the time to even step into work. So imagine a person who's walking 2 to 3 miles a day, and then all of a sudden I can barely walk a half a mile without having pelvic pain. I remember I was having so much pelvic pain that I was falling asleep on the toilet. And the pelvic floor therapist, which is another really great resource, go to pelvic floor therapy, was saying to me that the damage from all the laparoscopies had tightened my muscles to the point that it was impacting my bladder. I was going through, I mean, think about it, was there was still lots of pain with sex. So relationships, intimacy was impacted. I know some women in my support group who have stated that they haven't had intercourse with their husbands for almost a year because of endometriosis pain. These are all the like I said, there's the hormone therapies. So some of the things impacting my mental health were, now I'm not having periods anymore. If I'm not having periods anymore, I hadn't had kids yet. I can't have a baby if I'm
Yeah.
in menopause. So if I
Right.
even desire to seek after a child, I can't do that. There were so many things that impacted me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, um, from losing my ability to walk to losing sight. At some point in this process, honestly, I lost sight of who I was.
Mm.
Before, I used to run around like, oh, I'm a child of God and everything is great and everything was strawberry shortcake, marshmallows, and rainbows. And then all of a sudden, I'm on hormone therapy and I'm having surgery after surgery and I'm going to the doctor all the time. And then I got to seek out all this information and I got to get a second opinion. I end up going to a pelvic pain center in the Chicagoland area, because we were talking hysterectomy, and I just thought to myself, endometriosis is not going to take my chances of having a child away. I just couldn't let that happen.
Yeah.
So there's decisions that have to be made during this process while you're going through all this. Then, if you have a job, there are some women who have lost their job. You will, let me just say this, I lost family members who thought I wanted attention.
Mm.
I lost friends who thought I was exaggerating. I lost doctors who thought that I wasn't doing making the right decisions for my health. I lost intimate relationships because I couldn't keep up with them. And at some point, I almost lost my mind. And that is why it impacts your mental health. Chronic illness, no matter the form, it can change who you are. It can change how you define yourself, how you see yourself. It can change so much, especially when it's impacting you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. All those different places in my life, it was just taking its toll on me. And that's why it was so important for me to have the support groups on Facebook and the Mighty. It was so important for me to have a counselor. It was so important for me to have a psychiatrist. It was so important for me to have that secondary doctor, that second opinion that I needed so desperately, because I needed somebody who wasn't just trying to deliver babies. I needed a doctor who was just going to deal with this pelvic pain,
Yeah.
because the pain, I my home is about 1,000 square feet, and it is probably 20 steps from my bed to my restroom. I remember having to hold on to the wall because I was in so much pain. I remember urinating hurting, bowel movements hurting. Like, there are so many painful things I remember. I remember my body waking me up in level 10 pain, and that's how I lost sleep, or I would oversleep. I couldn't eat, then I would overeat. These are all the mental effects that this illness was causing me. And that's why it's so important that you have support, you have resources, and that for those people that think you're over exaggerating, for those people that think you want some attention, let them be. I am grateful for everybody that stood by my side, and let me tell you, I don't miss nobody who was there and ain't there no more. So
Yes.
lose, if you gotta lose the intimate
Yes.
relationships, you gotta lose the family or friends, you gotta lose the doctors, lose it for your mental sanity. Your mental sanity is more important than that friend that walked away, than the family member that walked away, than the doctor that walked away, than the boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that walked away. Do your best not to lose yourself in the pain. Do your best from a mental health standpoint to get everything you need, the support you need. I probably belong to 20 support groups for endometriosis on
That's
Facebook,
good.
but that's what I needed.
That's what you need.
Um,
Yes, absolutely. You know, you talk about doing everything that you need to do to keep your mental sanity. Yes, I applaud that. I clap that. You know, there is so many things that, you know, not only women go through, men go through different things as well. And we forget that we do need that strong support system. We need our strong guys that are holding us down, you know, giving the guys the good information and the good guidance. And as women, especially dealing with a chronic disease like this, when you talk about losing yourself in the pain, I can see how it takes away, you know, your it can take away your sanity. It takes away, you know, your strength, your faith when you were standing strong at one point, and then all of a sudden it's like the air has been knocked out of your lungs, and now you're having
that's
to figure out how
that's
to
right.
function again, how to live again. You
That's
know,
right.
and it's crazy that so many people don't understand that you can lose yourself because you're having to now figure out the new life dealing with this chronic illness, and how
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
how do I move forward with this chronic illness? Okay, so now I have to adjust everything. I
Everything.
used to be able to walk
Everything.
miles. You know, I'm moving. I'm killing it at work. Now I'm having conflict at work because I'm like, and that's a great point. I'm glad that you mentioned that it falls under FMLA. There are so many organizations and companies and corporations out there that won't give that time or that flexibility when some of these
Yep.
women are dealing with this chronic disease and this chronic
Yep.
illness. And you know, and then you also talk about and you think about how much you kind of feel like you're going crazy because everything is against you. No one's there to support you. I'm having
Yes.
issues at home because maybe my husband doesn't understand that I can't be intimate. You mentioned that one lady that hasn't been intimate with her husband in over a year. You know, so
Yep.
it's a new way of life living
It's
with
a
a
new
chronic illness like endometriosis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it impacts your mental health so much because it really does change. I am a different person than who I was before I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I hope I'm a better person, but but I'm definitely a person that I have so much more grace for people,
Mm,
and I have so much more patience with people, and I do not judge a situation when I see it the way I did prior to getting sick,
right,
because it changes you in ways you never imagined. Pain changes you in ways you never imagined. The one thing that I know for sure that is probably similar with all chronic illnesses, whether they are with men or women, is pain. You're
right.
probably going to experience some level of pain, and that changes you in ways that I can't describe. It impacts your body in ways that I can't describe. And so, what's really important as you're going through these changes is, like I said, to get the help you need, to get the support you need, to seek out answers. I can't tell you how many nights I was up all night Googling this or Googling that, on Facebook, looking through support groups, looking up educational materials. There's, for any illness, anything any man or woman is going through, just seek out the information. Listen to your body, keep asking questions, get that second opinion, and seek out information. And one of the most important theories that I learned that helped me so much during this time is something called the spoon theory. Okay?
Spoon theory. Okay.
So, the spoon theory is a way to help your friends and family understand how your body is changing with chronic illness or pain. So, a person who does not have chronic illness or pain, they get up, they might shower, go into the office, go to work, come home, cook dinner, do all these things, and then go to bed at 11 o'clock and get back up at 6. Okay? That's just an example. When you have a chronic illness, when you have chronic pain, you cannot do all the things you used to do. The spoon theory is basically letting you know you have so many energy spoons in a day. You could even think about it like a video game. You got so many energy pellets in a day. So let's say every single day, because this is the thing that everybody forgets. Even if you end up like on pain medicine, or you end up taking um like marijuana for your pain or things like that, just because you don't feel the pain doesn't mean your body doesn't feel the pain. And
Right.
pain takes energy away from your body. So you may only have 20 spoons every single day. So that shower you took in the morning, now that's taking 2 spoons of your energy. That going to work is now taking 3 or 4 spoons of your energy. That coming home and cooking dinner, well, now that's 3 spoons. Taking care of the kids, that's 4 spoons. Do you see how the spoon theory works? The spoon theory basically attaches a daily limit to how much energy you have, and then lets you know for every single thing you do, you're going to take away some spoons to do that thing. So that means you only have a certain level number of things you can do in a day. So for example, with me, I used to work out, go take a shower, go to work, come home, walk 2 to 3 miles, cook dinner, and then I would probably go to bed. None of that was happening after endometriosis. I could maybe take a shower and go to work, but I couldn't walk the dog
Wow.
because I just didn't have enough spoons of energy to get me through the day like that.
Mm.
Now, this is the thing, you can take from the spoons from the next day, but you're going to pay for it in pain,
Yeah.
probably. You're going
Yeah.
to pay for it the next day. You're going to get up late. One of the number one things that I explain to women who have endometriosis or a chronic illness, or even men, is it probably tires you out just to shower.
Yeah.
There's a lot of memes and jokes on the Mighty and the other support sites for chronic illness. It's kind of a joke that it takes us 4 spoons to shower. It's not really, but the point is that you used to be able to just get up and shower and go on about your business, but now that's pulling energy from you. So you find yourself maybe tired after you shower or get dressed for work, where before you were not tired. That's a telltale sign that something's wrong inside your body, and something has to happen. But the spoon theory is a really great way for your friends and family and those that love you to understand, hey, look, I used all my spoons today, because you do end up canceling a lot of plans. I remember people getting upset with me because I wasn't texting back, and people getting upset with me because I wasn't responding to phone calls back, and just all these different things that was happening because I just didn't have the energy anymore to handle all the things that life throws at you.
Right.
And so the spoon theory, and just understanding that you can survive this chronic illness, you can survive the pain, have the resources you need intact, the support systems, the support groups on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or wherever social media site you use. Once you have all those systems in place, then just understand you can't lose sight of you. You can't lose your mind. Your mental health can't suffer. And so understand the spoon theory and how that really impacts the energy you have, and it'll really help you better plan out your days and weeks and make plans again, to be able to do the things and live again like you used to do before you got the chronic illness.
That's good. So, the spoon theory, ladies, gentlemen, check it out. Use that spoon theory, do your research, let your families understand what it is, so you can kind of put it into words, and put it into picture form, to allow those that are supporting you to understand what you're going through and how much this disease is taken away from you. You talk about the spoon theory with energy. I'm sitting here listening to you talking about not returning phone calls or being tired. I'm like that regularly. So I'm like, so it's really putting things into perspective for someone that's dealing with a chronic illness. The basic things that we're all taking advantage, not taking advantage of, but not thinking about how easy it is for us to do by someone
Yes.
with a chronic illness. It's just it's crazy how people go through, especially women are going through this disease, and it's not known out there to everyone. It's not diagnosed easily for some of the doctors, but definitely look up the spoon theory and explain to your family and your support system how that helps so they can understand and give you more grace. I love how you mentioned that you have more grace and more patience with people now after the diagnosis. And I often find that people that have been through a traumatic experience, a traumatic illness or disease, you come out with a different outlook on life.
Absolutely.
Some of us we out here riding dirty and we just living our life like it's golden, but not taking the breath, not realizing that today I opened up my eyes and today
Absolutely.
I'm able to walk around.
Absolutely. And we also have to account that when we go through traumatic things like chronic illness, just like people who have been in the military, there's some PTSD associated with some of these things.
Yes.
After having 7 laparoscopies and 9 procedures to deal with my endometriosis, I can't look at a medical exam room without having some sort of like shakes or something because
Twitching and stuff trying
you
to walk
just
up in there.
you just sometimes like I got sick of looking at the doctor's office.
Yeah.
You have to just really account for all the toll it all is taking on you.
Yeah.
And you are not the next person. You're going to deal with it how you deal with it. And you have to just look out for you and really just not lose yourself in the pain. Don't lose yourself in the chronic illness. Don't lose yourself in the disease. And don't lose yourself with all the things that happen physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, and spiritually. If you believe in God, you have to hold on to your faith.
Yes.
My
Yes.
God, you have got to hold on to your faith because I am telling you, that was probably one of the biggest things that I was just really just I couldn't do what I used to do. I was barely making it to church. I was barely This is before COVID. So I was barely, like I said, you only have so many energy pellets.
Yeah.
And finally, I just had to realize that everything happens for a reason and that all the things that I used to do were no more or less important to God than the things that I'm doing right now.
That's good.
And that was just really like God embraced me and showed me his love. And he just like, it doesn't matter that you can't run 3 miles anymore or walk 5 miles. God still loves me. And
Yes.
guess what? I can walk a half a mile and I can still touch a life of somebody down the street from me. Just walking that half a mile. So
Yes.
it's just so important you do what you need for your mental health and your sanity to get through um, what you have to when you have a chronic illness. I know our time is running low, so I just want to make sure the resources are out here real quick. So, for endometriosis, endofound.org. That is the Endometriosis Foundation of America. Endofound.org. There is the Center for Endometriosis Care, which is center4endo.com. Center4endo.com. On Facebook, there is a really great group called Endo the Silence. ENDO the Silence. And then a really great place for education and information on um, endometriosis, doctors that all this stuff is called Nancy's Nook. Nancy's Nook Endometriosis Education. That's on Facebook also. And then the site I mentioned earlier was themighty.com. Themighty.com. That really helps people with any chronic illness. There's things out there for men, for women, for everybody, just to kind of find some support for whatever you may be going through and just get some information about how chronic illness impacts you, um, and in any way, man or woman.
Thank you.
I think those are, and then if you want to contact me, you can contact me, Tyreasa, at TYBABY79 at Comcast.net. That's TYBABY79 at Comcast, COMCAST .net. And I have an Instagram dedicated to endometriosis, and that is TKN2979. That is Timothy King Nancy 2979.
Phenomenal.
Okay, Coach
Phenomenal.
Ford. I hope
Phenomenal.
that really helps your listeners
We
and
needed
helps
those
those dealing with
resources.
chronic illness and
Yes.
mental health this
Yes,
month.
yes, yes. It is so key and it's so important for us to be having discussions like this. You know, some people may cringe at listening to about some of the things that women are going through, but it's a real conversation that so many need to hear. It's a real
Yes,
conversation, and one thing that you mentioned, you told the ladies that they can survive this illness. That
they can survive.
right there, I felt that when you said that. So, all you ladies out there that are dealing with this horrible, horrible disease, remember that no matter how tough it is, no matter how dark it seems, you can survive this illness. Accepting the new way of life. Um,
Absolutely.
One thing you mentioned is that hey, although I can't run the 3 miles that I used to run, God still has a plan for me. I'm just going to be operating under a different capacity, and that's okay. But just understanding that you can survive, and also one thing I wanted to mention is to be patient with yourself. So many
Oh, yes,
times,
absolutely.
so many times people are going through things, going through illnesses, mental health issues, and you have things going on around you, people surrounding you saying certain things, and you're expecting the expectations of those around you is that you should be better by now. You should be fine. And in your case, the doctor's like, you're not going to come back and see me for 2 whole years. And it was 5 months later. So
Yep,
being patient with yourself, regardless of what you're going through, is key when it comes to keeping your mental sanity and keeping your
that's
mental
right. That's
stability.
right.
You have to take care of you, listening to your body, advocating for you, because no one's going to advocate
That's
for you
right.
like you. But this has been such a wonderful and educating discussion, Tyreasa. I've seen your strength throughout the years as you have fought this disease. And like I said in the beginning, I admire you for being able to stand and, help others that are going through what you go through. You know,
Absolutely.
they
Absolutely. And I think it's important that we have people stand with us, and the people that stay close to us and our friends. But it's also important to have a therapist or a psychiatrist, someone you can talk to. And let's talk about real quick the Black Therapy app, where people can get online and find a Black therapist on the Black Therapy Love app that is designed by Miss Coach Ward here. If you need a therapist,
yes, absolutely.
it's a Black
Absolutely.
therapist.
Yes, yes, yes. It's
And what's the website you go to get the app,
So
Tomina?
so it's www.black-love-therapy.com, or you can find me on IG. It's the IG handle is black_therapy_love, and you can download the app right from there. But yeah, no, you're exactly right, Ty. Having to go through counseling and finding a good therapist helping you while you're dealing with illnesses like this is key to getting you back on track and you to living the life that and it may be adjusted. However, it's still your life, and you can live it to the best of your ability when you have some assistance and have a good therapist in your corner. So
That's
We
right.
are going to wrap this up. This is your coach, Tomina Ward. You can find me on IG at coach_Tomina Ward, or you can hit me on my website. It's www.coachtominaward.com. And you're listening to Health, Wealth, and Relationships. Until next time, family, love on yourself because no one's going to love you better than you. Peace.